Speed. It's what Jahmyr Gibbs' game is based on. He is the definition of instant acceleration with the ball in his hands. He is a threat to make a house call every time he touches the ball because once he sees a crease, he can take off in an instant. Very few people on the field can match his speed, and that's what gets everyone excited when watching him. In this video, I will look in depth at what makes Gibbs the dynamic player he is, what his limitations are, and how he can overcome some of those limitations. Stay tuned until the end, as there are some popular player comps that should be discussed. Jahmyr Gibbs' official 4.36 40 time puts him in the 97th percentile of all running backs tested. His speed makes him a home run threat every time he touches the ball. He was 5th in the NCAA in breakaway run percent, that is runs of 15 yards or more. Gibbs' explosive element will supercharge any offense he joins. There are countless examples on film of Gibbs beating angles with his burst. Here against Tennessee, he does a good job with his pace, slowing down a brief second, causing the pursuing defender to respect Gibbs' option to cut back inside. This gives him the room necessary to re-accelerate by the defender. Jahmyr's speed allows him to capture the edge with ease. Defenses struggle to contain him. Oftentimes, Gibbs will press a line enough so that linebackers are a step late when he decides to bounce runs outside. Gibbs' burst, combined with his hip fluidity, allows him to change direction and accelerate in an instant. This allows him to bounce runs that most running backs wouldn't be able to. This play against Kansas State is a good example. An unblocked defender makes his way into the backfield. Gibbs uses a jump stop and widens his base so he can take off in either direction. He flips his hips with ease and darts outside. His ability to rotate his hips is extraordinary. You just don't find many backs with his level of hip fluidity. If Gibbs wanted to, I think he would have been an exceptional cornerback. After flipping his hips, he accelerates quickly enough to capture the edge. He then fakes upfield and uses a speed cut to get around yet another defender. His stop-start quickness is special. You can see his loose hips again here against LSU. You could argue that he should have hit this to the design gap front side, considering the line got good vertical and horizontal displacement. But on zone plays, oftentimes there can be two right answers. He does a good job being patient, getting to the original line of scrimmage before cutting back. This delivers the linebackers to the offensive line. With all defenders now occupied by a blocker, he's able to rotate his hips and explode outside quickly. Again, he does a good job with his pace in the open field, making the defender pause a moment so he can re-accelerate and beat the angle. Jahmyr excels on outside zone runs. By stretching the defense horizontally, cutback windows appear that Gibbs can accelerate through quickly. His speed influences teams and players. As defenders work to prevent Gibbs from getting outside, they will over-pursue, creating cutback lanes. Gibbs has great feet, able to stop and start promptly, allowing him to quickly take advantage of those cutback lanes. Gibbs is better suited for an outside zone scheme than one predicated on a lot of inside run plays, as he doesn't have to fight through as much traffic and arm tackles. Gibbs can exceed running inside, though he'll need to get stronger to do it consistently at the next level. His ability to quickly cut and change directions allows him to snake through a defense. And when a seam appears, he can hit it quickly before it closes. The problem in the NFL is there will be a lot more traffic to navigate through. When running in traffic, Gibbs struggles to break arm tackles and get yards after contact. Take a look at this play. Yes, he is running through tight space, but he's going to have to run in tight spaces at the next level. He lets elbow to wrist contact bring him down. An arm tackle where contact is made from the elbow to wrist portion of the arm should not bring down NFL backs. Jahmyr also needs to get his feet up when running inside so that he doesn't get tripped up. Even on this outside zone play, when he has momentum, the D-line is able to slow him down with an arm tackle. He should be running in for a touchdown on this play. Piles rarely move forward when he approaches them. He just doesn't have the leg strength to drive through in these situations. When he is in open space, he is able to be shifty enough so that defenders can't square up on him. But when a tackler is able to make solid contact, he doesn't fall forward for extra yards. He is not going to be a short yardage back in the NFL. Having said that, I still believe that he can be adequate running inside, but he will need to be excellent pressing the hole. He needs to manipulate D linemen and linebackers so he can avoid contact until he can get into open space. This play against Arkansas is a good example of that. He is patient pressing the line. He lets his blocks develop, delivering the linebacker to the tackle, and causing the defensive tackle to peek inside before cutting off the hip of the tight end. Again, he needs to get his feet up running through traffic so he can make this a bigger play, but good patience and vision creates a clean hole for him. This next play, again against Arkansas, shows why he'll need to be elite with his ability to create running lanes for himself. On this play, Gibbs doesn't really press the hole too much, rather he cuts back quickly. In a second, we'll see from the wide view that he had plenty of space between himself and the line to continue pressing. Because he cuts back a hair early, the linebacker has enough time to recognize the cutback and fall into the gap. He gets enough contact on Gibbs to slow him down. If Gibbs was able to press the line just a bit longer, then he could have given himself a free run at the safety, something that is hard to stop. On the wide view, you can see how much space there is between Gibbs and the lineman. His O-line did a good job getting horizontal and vertical displacement. Gibbs should have gotten closer to the heels of the lineman before cutting. There's many times where Gibbs is quick to look for the cutback. We already saw this on a play earlier against LSU. The same thing happens here again against Tennessee. It's important for the running back to be in tune with his offensive line. This is inside zone to the left. With the playside defensive tackle in a 4-eye technique and the backside defensive tackle in a 2-eye, the key block here is between the center and the right guard. The center can either release directly to the linebacker, or he can rock back and help the guard before releasing up to the linebacker. If the center releases directly to the linebacker, then it's likely that the 2-eye will force a cutback as he has inside leverage on the right guard. If the center rocks back to help the guard, then the guard has a better chance to reach and seal the 2-eye. The center rocks back on this play. Jahmyr needs to be aware of this, as it will let him know pre-snap that he has a good chance to bang this run front side. Instead, it almost appears that Gibbs predetermined that he was going to cut back, and unfortunately there's a fold player waiting. If he had stayed front side, this had a good chance of being a long gain. Gibbs' speed and quickness allows him to bounce runs outside, or get out of unfavorable situations. He can be overzealous looking for cutbacks or paths to get outside. He misses holes and opportunities to get upfield a bit. While he's able to get to the edge and still get decent gains in college, the quickest way to get to the end zone is getting vertical. The longer he runs east-west, the higher likelihood that opposing players can get an angle on Gibbs. And the NFL, where there's more speed, some of those long gains he makes while running sideline to sideline will be harder to come by. He will need to learn to trust the play design and to get upfield when the opportunity presents itself. I wouldn't base my game plan on running Gibbs on plays like inside zone, duo, or ISO, but you can't go out there running outside zone with him every play as well. His burst will allow him to break off chunk runs inside, especially as he continues to hone his manipulation skills. Players will respect Gibbs' speed, it's just a matter of Gibbs using that respect to move players and create openings for himself. Where Jahmyr's most deadly is in open space. Whether in the run game or pass game, teams must find ways to get Gibbs the ball with room to operate. We've already seen how his speed sets him apart, and it's his speed that is the foundation of his open field moves. Gibbs is a smooth runner. He uses a combination of pace, body lean, shoulder fakes, jab steps, and speed cuts to set up defenders. Really what he tries to do is run at a defender with a head of steam and influence them slightly in one direction so that he can get enough of an angle to use his acceleration to zoom by them. He has excellent start-stop ability, which allows him to make lightning quick cuts. While he does show the ability to juke guys out of their shoes, he relies much more on setting up defenders with slight movements to explode by them. This allows him to make cuts without having to slow down and letting the defense catch up to him. One of the best ways to get Gibbs the ball in open space is through the air. The passing game is really where I think Gibbs will make his mark in the NFL. First, he has excellent hands. He had 2 drops on 121 career targets. He does a good job catching the ball away from his body and can cleanly make adjustments to off-target throws. He also consistently demonstrates the ability to catch through contact. Gibbs can line up all over the field. Over 25% of his routes were in the slot or out wide at Alabama. For comparison, Alvin Kamara has run over 27% of his routes from the slot or out wide. He's going to be a headache for defensive coordinators. Trying to match up with him is going to be a nightmare. He is far too quick to get matched up with linebackers. Angle and choice routes out of the backfield would be unfair with his start-stop quickness. He routinely beats linebackers on these routes. There's several examples on film where linebackers slip trying to react to his break. These are low-risk, high-reward plays that will be a boost to any offense. Gibbs will create explosive plays from the slot or out wide, which you can see on this play against Kansas State. Again, it can't be said enough how big of a mismatch his route running and speed are. I wouldn't be surprised to see slot fades and go routes from Gibbs in certain matchups. Teams will have to figure out how to put a safety on him in obvious passing situations. Jahmyr's ability to line up all over the formation gives a coordinator a heck of a chess piece. This pre-snap alignment combined with motion can be a great indicator what coverage defense is in. His multi-position versatility can also create interesting personnel groupings and tendency breakers. Think how the 49ers were able to use Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel last year. Gibbs will make an offense that much harder to game plan for. One area that is going to be a big hindrance for Jahmyr Gibbs is his pass blocking. His slight frame and underwhelming play strength make it hard to rely on him to protect a quarterback. He often gets tossed around by pass rushers. Blitzing linebackers and rushing D linemen are going to run straight through him in the NFL. He can do things with his technique to mitigate his lack of play strength, but I don't think he'll ever be a plus pass blocker. Let's look at this play to see how he can help himself out. He needs to create better separation from the quarterback when preparing to block. What I mean is, he should be a few more steps up in the hole so that when he does inevitably get pushed back, he gives himself more area between himself and the quarterback to anchor down. This play also shows his flaws as a pass blocker. He has many reps where he'll turn his body and throw his shoulder at someone. He doesn't stay square so he can redirect, use his hands, or play with a strong wide base so he can anchor. There are also several other plays where he drops his head into an opposing player's chest, which is dangerous for Gibbs. It also doesn't allow him to play with power as he's overextended, and he'll whiff on blocks. With his head down, he can't see where the oncoming defender is at, and being overextended will easily allow a pass rusher to flip their hips and move around Gibbs' block. As a guy that will be heavily relied upon in the passing game, being a poor pass blocker will limit his plays on the field. With better technique, he will improve as a pass blocker. Gibbs will just need to add strength and show a willingness to stand in there and swap pain. Now in terms of player comps, there's a few that have been thrown around a lot. The most popular one is the Alvin Kamara comp. They share a lot of similarities in the passing game. They both line up all over the field and are schemed ways to get the ball in open space. They're both deadly coming out of the backfield, as they are excellent route runners with great hands. But I feel like people fall into the comparison to Kamara because they both catch well and look similar with their dreads. They have much different body types, as Kamara has a good 15 pounds on Gibbs. He also plays with much better strength and contact balance than Gibbs. Kamara's contact balance is elite. That's really what makes Kamara special. He plays through contact much better than Gibbs, which allows him to be utilized in more ways. While Gibbs does show some ability to break tackles, he's a guy that goes down fairly easily once a defender is able to get his hands on him. Unless he is able to be shifty enough to get a tackler off balance, he has a hard time getting yards after contact. He struggles to fight through arm tackles, and when defenders square up on him, he rarely is able to shed those tackles. He doesn't have nearly the same contact balance as Kamara, and due to his smaller size, I doubt he ever will. Their playstyles are different elsewhere as well. Gibbs is significantly faster than Kamara. Gibbs ran a 4.3640 compared to Kamara's 4.56. Gibbs' top-end speed allows him to outrace defenders in ways that Kamara is not. Gibbs is more reliant on his speed, whereas Kamara makes things work in large part to his contact balance. The other familiar player comp we are seeing is to Jamaal Charles. Charles and Gibbs are much more similar to each other in terms of body composition and athleticism than Kamara and Gibbs. At their respective combines, they both weighed in within a pound of each other. Gibbs ran a 4.3640 to Charles' 4.38, and both had relatively underwhelming verticals. Moreover, their running styles are very similar as well. They are both more smooth and shifty runners, and they have high-level passing game pedigree. Having said that, Jamaal Charles was definitely a stronger runner than Gibbs. His contact balance was excellent, and he was more capable of running through tackles than Gibbs. Maybe Gibbs can get there one day by adding more size and strength. He's still young, having just turned 21, so I don't think he's done developing physically. But if he's gonna live up to the Jamaal Charles comp, he will need to improve a bit on his physicality. In terms of where he'll likely slot in this draft, many draft analysts are predicting Gibbs will get drafted in the late first or early second round. His athletic profile and positional versatility certainly warrant consideration here. Having said that, there are some things that teams will need to consider when deciding if they want to use a high-value pick on a player like Gibbs. First is the size concerns. He doesn't have a typical frame of a workhorse back. Though there have been smaller backs that have excelled with high workloads, you're betting against the percentages if you think Gibbs is going to be able to handle a workhorse role for extended periods of time. His college coaches likely realize this as well. In his lone year at Alabama, Gibbs was tied for 89th in the country in rushing attempts with 136. He only had 32 more carries than Alabama's second running back. Even his sophomore year at Georgia Tech, he only had 143 rushes. I wouldn't expect Gibbs to go to the NFL and all of a sudden be in the top 10 in rushing attempts. With smaller backs, There will always be concerns about injury and how long they will be able to hold up, but that's also the nature of the position. His size will also create some scheme limitations as well. He's not a guy that you want to run inside all game. His body and playstyle is just not built for wearing down a defense like that. He won't be a goal line back or someone you're going to consistently go to in 3rd and 1 situations. You would be misusing him if that was your game plan. He's a guy that you will need to pair with a bigger back that can shoulder some of the load and handle the dirty, tough runs. Gibbs is a guy that you want to get the ball to on outside zone plays, jet sweeps, tosses, screens, and swing routes. Find a way to get this guy the ball in space because he's a big play waiting to happen. Teams will have to make a decision if they want to use what will likely be a late 1st or early 2nd round pick on a running back that will be limited in his workload and need to be paired with another running back. Typically, running backs picked that high in today's NFL are expected to be workhorse backs. Personally, I feel that Gibbs is worth the pick if the team picking him is already set in most other positions. If a team has big holes at the quote-unquote priority positions like offensive line, pass rusher, wide receiver, or cornerback, then they probably shouldn't take Gibbs. If a team is looking for a running back to take a significant portion of the rushing attempts, then this probably isn't the player for them either. I think at his likely draft cost, Gibbs' best value will be on a team that is set in most other positions and that you can drop in as a finishing piece. Teams that don't have major concerns on their O-line, have a weapon or two in the passing game, and a bigger running back can afford to use a priority pick on a player like Gibbs. The Eagles are a perfect team for this scenario. They have arguably the best O-line in the league, a trio of weapons in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, an MVP candidate in Jalen Hurts, and a big physical back in Rashad Penny. The matchup problems that can be created by coming out in empty sets with AJ, Devontae, Goedert, and Gibbs is fascinating to think about. Gibbs would be given a lot of space underneath the work as opposing defenses focus on the other weapons. And Gibbs would also fit right in with a number of the Eagles' option and RPO schemes. Alabama used the bash concept a number of times this year. Bash is pretty much an inverted read option where the running back will take the ball in a sweep to the side of the read if the defensive end crashes down, and the quarterback keeps the ball and runs to the play side if the defensive end stays in contain. The Eagles ran this play a number of times throughout the season. They often paired it with a GT counter instead of outside zone like Alabama ran. Gibbs' speed would do well stretching defenses horizontally on this play. Here you can see Alabama using Gibbs on a swing route out of the backfield. This will also fit right in with the Eagles' scheme as they ran a lot of tailback swing concepts, whether they were RPO or screen plays. He will open up space for other players, as the threat of Gibbs getting the ball with room to work will draw attention away from the quarterback run on the opposite side. If the defense wants to sit and keep numbers in the box to stop the quarterback run, then Gibbs will have space to work outside. Gibbs will be an exciting, dynamic player to add to the Eagles' offense. Overall, Jahmyr Gibbs' speed and playmaking ability would bring a fun, explosive element to any offense. His position versatility makes him a matchup nightmare that offensive coordinators will love. While he has limitations due to his size, his matchup problems and elite speed make him a player well worth the investment.